The very first lesson is very important. As Alan Pease said, you'll never get a second chance to make a first impression. It is the first lesson when you should get a student interested, demonstrate how effective a good lesson can be. To do that, you need to prepare the lesson carefully, find the relevant lesson material and be flexible on impulse. Be welcoming and engaged. Get to know your student very well. Define the student's level precisely. Find out students' aims and preferences. You get students who have already had trial lessons provided with basic information about his or her goals and the level written in the student's card, example on the slide. Nevertheless, you shouldn't rely on this information completely because a trial lesson is usually quite intense and the manager sometimes fails to define the level correctly, as a student might be speaking freely and, hence, producing a false impression concerning their actual level of English. A student might not show all of his or her capabilities. A student might change their aims after the trial lesson. For example, the personal card information isn't conclusive and requires some detailed corrections in order to choose the course properly. Choosing the course without regard to the student's aims might lead to the loss of motivation, students' dissatisfaction, or other conflicts within the lesson. For the first lesson, it is highly recommended for the teacher to prepare warm-up activities for the new student, a list of the questions with different grammar structures in order to define the level, a list of the questions to elicit students' goals, a lesson of the level indicated in the card as well as ones of level lower and upper. Let's have a look at that in detail. During the first minutes of the lesson, you should melt the ice. Imagine you're seeing the person for the first time and he or she's telling you, "Good morning, the exercise number 1. One shouldn't start the first lesson by explicating the task at once. It's recommended to get to know your student, get him or her prepared for English speech. You can start using some questions known as small talk about the weather, daily mood, work, etc. For instance, "I see it's sunny in your flat. Are you in Moscow? You are wearing some warm clothes. Is it cold where you are? How was your day today? How do you feel? Did you have a lot of difficult tasks today? Do you like your job? How was your day today? How is the weather in your city?" You can give your student a compliment, his or her accessories, tell something about the room he or she is in, or his or her intentions for studying English. You can also use some tasks like that. Describe yourself in 3 words: lie detector, my favorite things, etc. To make sure the student's level is correct, you can use some tests or questions. Unfortunately, the test isn't communicative and can be given to the student as home task. During the lesson, we highly recommend using some questions containing different grammatical structures. Alternatively, you could give your student some questions formed in different or wrong times. Ask him or her to correct the mistakes and answer the questions. To choose the lesson course, some additional materials and more or less intensive study correctly, and to keep student motivated, one should know more about some true study goals. Some students might not always realize or formulate their goals clearly. To elicit students' aims, you can use such set of questions after warming up activities. 1. Where are you going to speak English? 2. Who are you going to speak English with? 3. What topics? What problems? 4. When? The questions might be asked in a different order. You can add some extra questions based on the student's answers. If the student's level is beginner or elementary, it is recommended to ask these questions in his or her native language. You should look through the materials according to the student's level in the card, including lower and upper ones as backup additional. During the lesson, you might find out the student's level wasn't defined correctly and therefore switch the lesson material. Please note that sometimes managers could select intermediate as the recommended level, but that doesn't mean you should start the course with lesson 30. After additional questions using different grammatical structures or a small grammar test, you can start a lesson with the grammar part or aspect being the most difficult for the student. For instance, the student knows the to be structure well. However, he or she confuses question and negative forms of the present simple. Hence, we start with lesson 7, not with 1. In the other case, the student might know the present simple well, so you can choose another lesson using the course map. Although there is a defined student level, it becomes clearer after at least the first 2 lessons whether you need to change the course or not. After eliciting a student's level and aims, you might tell him or her about their strengths and weaknesses, indicating the aspects to elaborate and giving some additional recommendations. Briefly, you might tell them about the number of the lessons planned and indicate key principles success studying is relied on. We highly recommend you to ask for feedback at the end of the lesson. Let him or her tell you about likes and dislikes, something he or she would like to change. Even the most experienced teachers might not always understand if the student is happy or not. Please ask your student about the time he or she is capable to spend on homework. Considering this information, you understand the number of additional tasks to set. However, it is important to note that doing homework is a crucial part of learning. Progress without it is near impossible. Good luck!